Sergeant Ken Menzel joining us this morning from the Twin Falls County Sheriff's Office. It's about 6 minutes after 8 o'clock. We're at 49. Bill Colley as well on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. Don't mess with this building today because state police come up next and then Grant Loeb's at 9 o'clock. So 2 hours of law enforcement just
So you
ahead.
should just put us all together and we could just have a long session
A
with
round
the three
table.
of us around. Yeah.
Let's see, that's it. Law Enforcement Roundtable.
There you go.
We have a similar show when it comes to God. But we can do it when it comes to law enforcement.
Right.
There you go. You just answered a question for me, and that makes another hour I don't have to prepare for.
And then Grant can keep us on the line if we go to say something that we maybe we shouldn't.
Yeah, very true. Again, you've been a busy guy. I saw the post over the weekend. Windy weather. This surprised me because I think of these people who are normally kayaking as being among the most fit people you're going to find. And on the other hand, when that wind is blowing up that canyon, and I remember years ago when I used to be a cyclist, back when I was in good shape. And if you turned down a street and you were at a headwind, it was not easy to pedal that bicycle. I can only imagine on the water that, you don't have any traction whatsoever.
Well, here's the thing and I've said this several times, Centennial Park, the canyon, this area where people like to go out and kayak has been such a well-kept hidden gem. And Twin Falls, the tourism board, they've done a phenomenal job at promoting what that area has to offer. So you get people from all over the world who come to base jump. It was a really, really popular spot for people to go fishing. There's a lot of species of fish in there. A lot of people primarily like to come down for the sturgeon fishing. But now with kayaks, you can buy a simple, cheap kayak from any one of the big box stores in Twin for under $200. And on a weekend or an evening, you can literally walk on from kayak to kayak from one edge of the shore to the other and not ever touch water. And the weather's been kind of strange this year. One day it'll be 90 and the next day it'll be rainy with sleet. And people really have wanted to kind of get out and experience nature because we've been kind of cooped up, if you will, and we've seen record numbers of people out on the waterway. We've already inspected over 1,000 boats out on the water this year. We've issued 70 citations already this year for people not having life jackets with them. Not just not having them on, but not having life jackets on their stand-up paddleboard, kayak, or canoe, period. The other day, when we were called out to the rescue, we were originally called out for just a single individual, and it was described as a female who had capsized several times and was having difficulty getting back. And so we launched our team, our search and rescue, along with a couple of Marine deputies, and we went down there with our jet boat and with our what we call a Zodiac. It's a small rubber inflatable raft with a outboard engine that we can lift up over the top of the rocks and port around Pillar Falls and put back in the river above Pillar Falls and be able to get under power and go all the way up to Shoshone Falls. And once we got there, we discovered that no, it wasn't just one individual, but there were 8 other individuals up there, a family with several small children. And the wind was blowing so hard that no matter how hard they tried, they just weren't able to get back. The elderly female that was up there, not only had she capsized several times and lost her shoes and lost her paddle, and this family helped her retrieve all of her stuff, she ended up, instead of turning back after having a series of unfortunate events, continued up to Shoshone Falls to the point that her kayak went under the falls at Shoshone Falls.
Wow.
And the one of the men in this group that we also had to go up and help jumped into his kayak and paddled quickly out to the falls and was able to get her out from underneath there. And you can imagine how quickly your kayak is going to fill up with water and sink with that amount of water coming over, like what we see. And right now it's kind of a trickle. And so our search and rescue guys were able to go up there, and we brought 5 people back in the first trip, and we brought three or four back on the second trip, and then brought all their kayaks back, and we loaded the kayaks on the jet boat and took them back to the dock, and the families, all of the individuals we were able to put on the jet boat and bring back to Centennial as well. But it was a stout wind, and again, yesterday we were down there, and the wind was blowing pretty good yesterday too, and we watched several people struggling, and there was a father with his 2 sons that were struggling getting back and weren't making any headway. And we had them hold onto the side of the boat, and we just idled back to the dock and gave them a lift as well. And we're seeing just a lot of people making some decisions that, And yesterday's group, they were from Michigan, and they'd never been here before. And so it was, we see a combination of things as to why this is happening. Lack of knowledge of the waterway, lack of experience, elderly, youth. We see people from all walks of life out here kayaking for the first time to people who are very experienced and have been doing this for many, many, many years. And it's just a series of bad choices that people have been making getting on the waterway.
Well, you think about how quickly the wind can come up here in this situation too, as well, because you can see we had a storm a couple of weeks ago where 20 minutes the wind came up and it just blew, and it was intense, and then it stopped, and it was coming all day long. There was weather reports it was going to be windy, and then all of a sudden, boom, it hits, but it hits with such force. You can't really time it out. You don't know if you're out there on the water when this is going to come.
Well, when you're down in the canyon, it's not like you have a bird's eye view of what's coming your way. You're
Right.
400 some odd feet down from the regular surface level that most people see when we're up here in the valley. But down in the canyon, all of a sudden that gray cloud's there, and it goes from a gray cloud to we counted 15 or 16 lightning strikes several weeks ago, and we were encouraging people to get off the water because you get a carbon fiber pole or whatnot down there. They act as lightning rods, and the last place we want to see people is out on the water in something that conducts electricity. And several people turned around and came back, but despite the lightning that was going on, several people chose to stay out. And it's just we encourage people to check the weather forecast, know what the weather is going to do that day. Keep a heads up, look around at your environment, and when you see those things starting to happen, just get off the water. We've been now during the week and on weekends consistently responding with our search and rescue teams out helping people who've made some poor choices.
We had a couple of storms when the last 3 weeks, maybe about 3 weeks ago, where it kicked up a lot of dust one day. It was like it was an. And
Blinding.
I stopped over by the visitor center, and I looked down the canyon just to kind of get a view of it, and you could see that cloud making its way up. It wasn't at the golf course yet,
Hmm.
but you could literally see that wall as it came up at the canyon. And that's the type of thing that if you're out there on the water already, you don't have a lot of time to get to shore when you start seeing that coming along.
Yeah, you don't. And a kayak trip from Centennial, if you're going to portage around Pillar Falls and go all the way up to Shoshone Falls, is something that's going to take you several hours. It's just not a hop in and 15 minutes we're there and turn around and come back. It's something that you've got to plan for accordingly. And if you see that bad weather coming and you can't get off, seek shelter. There's lots of areas along the canyon rim that you can find shelter and get out of the way for a while until that storm passes over.
Yeah, there's a couple of places. If there's an observation point. If you're walking past Canyon Crest and you're headed up toward the bridge, there's an observation point, and you can tell there's a big rock that fell out of the wall,
Right.
and it's created a cave. You
Uh-huh.
can stand in that cave and likely get shelter from rain, dust, anything going through there.
And at Pillar Falls on the south side of the canyon, there's a grove of trees, and you can see there's an area where people have kind of sheltered it out. You can actually take a path from the power plant there on top where Pole Line Road kind of dead ends. You can actually walk that whole trail all the way down to Pillar Falls. There's some great shelter in there. People can pull out and just kind of hang in that area if the weather's too bad and weather out the storm instead of trying to make it back on the water and create a bad situation.
We have a caller with us, and caller, you're up next. It's 8:15 on KLIX.
Morning, Ken. Morning, Bill.
Morning.
Yeah, I had a coworker explaining to me over the weekend. He was down there when you guys were shutting the water down, and they were a little bit frustrated. They had a family member come in from out of town and had rented the kayak and got denied because of the weather because people were getting help off the river and stuff. And I guess they were a little upset about getting kicked off the river, not being, whatnot. So I try to explain to him it's much like a state highway or an interstate that, yeah, the law enforcement does have the ability to shut public access ways down in the name of safety, and it applies to the roads just as it does the water. Can you kind of explain that a little bit more from your knowledge and expertise standpoint? And then also one other point I'd like to bring up with you is I've been down there several times on kayaks and paddle boards, and it's a lot of fun. It's a blast. If you haven't done it, people go out there and do it. It's a lot of fun. But the one thing that's a little frustrating is when you got 200 kayakers out there on that couple-mile stretch from Centennial up to Pillar, and you get a fish boat, nothing against fishermen, or a motorized boat that goes flying through there, and all of a sudden you see everybody kneeling down on their paddle boards or holding on to their kayaks, because there's some guys that are just not real respectful. Other people are extremely respectful. They slow down, they kind of stay away from everybody, and they play nice. But there's those few people in motorized boats that do cause some issues. What does the long-term forecast look like to possibly have all motorized boats or a horsepower restriction put on that section of the river?
Great questions. Let's start off with the first one. Look, we encourage people to be smart and mindful about how and where they choose to recreate. Um, and ultimately, if somebody's going to make the decision to go out and endanger their lives, there's really little that we can do to stop that. The suggestion was made when the individuals were down there this last weekend not to go out and put their kayaks on the river just because of how dangerous it was, and the possibility that we would have to come back out and rescue them, and that's just not very, I guess, being a very good steward of tax-paying dollars. If you realize that you're going to put yourself in a situation where other individuals are going to have to come back and help you out of your pickle. If it's that bad and you can't handle doing an event on your own, and you realize that we're giving you some sage advice that this isn't the best thing to do right now, because most likely you're going to have someone come help you out, because it's just not the ideal conditions to do it. People just need to take that into mind. We're here to help, and we'll always respond to help somebody if they find themselves in a situation where they can't take care of the event themselves. But we really encourage forward thinking, encourage people. Look, this is a self-rescue sport. Just because we came down and helped a group of people out doesn't mean that our resources are going to be diverted somewhere else, and we're going to have to help somebody that's in just as bad of a situation, and we might not be available to help somebody out who's made a bad choice, or the emergency response would be significantly delayed. And so we make those encouragements and ask people to use common sense and not to boat when the weather's bad like that, especially if you're in a non-motorized vessel.
I see sometimes, and the caller references that description of how crowded it gets.
Hmm.
Remember when I was a kid and we had some neighbors that had a nice camp up on the hill behind their house, and they're called different things in different parts of the country, but water skimmers, water spiders, water bugs,
Right.
and you'd walk over to the stream and they'd just be wall to wall, right?
Yes,
And that's kind of what it looks like if you're standing up by the bridge and you're looking down some days on all of this.
absolutely. And people don't realize that just like there's rules to the road when we're driving our vehicles, there's rules to the waterway as well when people are out on kayaks and motorized boats. And I think one of the biggest frustrations of our power boaters when they go down there, look, there have been power boaters out on this section of water fishing long before kayaking ever became popular. Which came first? Well, what came first in this situation was the power boaters down there angling for those sturgeon and the other types of fish that are found in the Snake River, and then kayaking just exploded. Um, and one of the main problems that we see with people on non-motorized vessels, on these stand-up paddle boards and kayaks, is they don't respect the rules of the waterway. Like you said, with those little water skeeters that are all over the road, they're all over the waterway, and they're not supposed to be. The center channel is designed for those power boaters to go up through, and when you have 200 boats from shoreline to shoreline plugging up that waterway, they violated the right of way, and now that power boater can't get through or even get on plane because you've got kayaks from one side to the other.
Reminds me of James Bond running across the backs of the alligators.
Right.
Remember that movie?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a great description.
We've got more coming up with Sergeant Ken Menzel from the Twin Falls County Sheriff's Office. It's 8:20. Bill Colley as well on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. Sergeant Ken Menzel from Twin Falls County Sheriff's Office joining us this morning on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. We're at 47. And if you'd like to reach Sergeant Menzel, the number 208-736-0300, 208-736-0300. Of course, you can also send me a message if you've got the app function on your smartphone. If you've not yet done that, it takes about a minute is all to download that. And you download that, and great thing is people are telling me you can actually listen to the signal as you're driving down the road, never have to touch the phone, but you can ask the phone to text me a message, and it'll send me a message during the course of the show. Caller, you're up next. You're on the air on KLIX. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to ask Officer Menzel about the Centennial Park and who polices that. We were down there a couple weekends ago, and There's everything from jet skis and boats flying. It's supposed to be a low, no wake zone. Just curious who polices that.
So the sheriff's office is responsible for all waterways in the state of Idaho, no matter what county you're in. That's designated by state statute. And we're down there quite frequently. In fact, Centennial we've identified as a popular spot where we go to. That's where we're going to find most of our violations when it comes to violations we're seeing out on the water. Most of the other places are pretty tame. And I would probably attribute a lot of that to the restrictions at Centennial Park are greater than other places. And if you see those jet skiers, like I said, the sheriff's office patrols Centennial Park, but we've got Murtaugh Lake that we're responsible for, Twin Falls Falls, Shoshone Falls, Thousand Springs, Salmon Dam, and so we don't have an unlimited number of deputies that are out there on the waterway. And if we're not at Centennial, we've probably got deputies out on the waterway at some other location. But if you see some of those things happening, especially jet skiers and whatnot, you're encouraged to call our non-emergency dispatch line at 208-735-1911. And if we don't have a Marine deputy on, or if they're not in the area, we can always send a patrol deputy down to take care of that situation. The waterway, let's not be confused. It's not a no-wake zone. There is a no-wake zone from inside the buoy to inside the buoy right there in the area of the park. But once you get outside of the buoy area, from that area of Centennial Park up to Pillar Falls, the speed limit on the waterway is 25 miles an hour. So that certainly creates a wake. And the previous caller was talking about some of these power boats not slowing down. And creating some sort of an issue where people on stand-up paddle boards will have to hurry and sit on their board because there is a wake coming in. As long as a power boat doesn't come within 100 feet of a kayaker, he's not required to slow down. He's able to proceed up the river at 25 miles per hour with a wake if he's further than 100 feet away from a kayak. And so you see those types of situations, and a lot of it is just lack of knowledge. And if kayakers would stay on the shoreline, so if you're headed up to Pillar Falls, you stay on that south shoreline, just right off the shore. And if you're coming back from Pillar Falls, headed to Centennial, stay on that north shore, right off the shoreline. Leave that center channel for power boats. I think we'd see a lot less congestion, a lot less issues than what we're seeing now. But the problem is that we've got people just from one side to the other, like Bill was talking about, and there really is. Nobody is following the rules of the waterway, if you will. They don't understand what a navigable channel means, and that's where we do our best to educate. We've got signs down there above the launch where the kayaks put in. Nobody takes the time to even read the signs, and we've got it posted pretty well as to what you need to do when you get down there.
I want to thank him for the call, and let's see if we've got another caller here. Oh, we lost that caller. Please feel free to call back. That number, 208-736-0300, 208-736-0300. Just checking my messages too as well. By the way, Coach Pete Colson says thank you for keeping the waterway safe and providing good information regarding water safety.
Thanks, Coach.
He's always thinking safety.
Right.
So, we have a caller. Caller, you're up next. You're on the air on KLIX. Go ahead.
Hey, so I've been boating that stretch of the river for 20 years now, and I pay my registration fees, and it's only recently that this kayaking craze has taken off, and now us as people that actually pay money to use these waterways have to yield to the ones that don't have to pay anything. You know, I don't find that as fair, of them coming out and saying, oh, we need to start limiting boaters. Well, either we need to start limiting kayakers and actually start collecting fees from them for people to, for maintenance of that area, and also to pay those wages of the people that come out and rescue them. That's my opinion.
Well, that's a point well taken, and caller, you're absolutely
like a user
right.
fee, right?
Well, and so all the docking system down there, the caller's right. Money collected from boat registrations is used to maintain those docks. And we see on average that we find that there are more fatalities on the waterway with non-motorized vessels than we see with motorized vessels. I think a lot of that has to do with public information or knowledge. We see a lot of people that go down with a power vessel or with a power boat that have all the stuff they need on it. It's common sense that you have life jackets on your motorboat. It's common sense that you have a fire extinguisher. It's common sense that your safety equipment is in good, accessible condition. A lot of people, when they go down and they buy these kayaks, oh, you mean I have to have a whistle? I didn't know that. There's rules. You mean I have to have a life jacket? This is my paddleboard. Why do I have to have a life jacket on here? This is mine. Those are the types of responses we've received this season as we've been down there doing enforcement.
Why do you have to have a head on your shoulders?
Right. And I can tell you that because the state of Idaho collects monies from boat registrations, and those registrations go towards maintaining Centennial Park, especially the docks, you're not going to see power boats eliminated from accessing that part of the river. It's just not going to happen.
We got only about 90 seconds to go. I'll try to squeeze one last caller in. Caller, you got to make it quick. You're on the air with Sergeant Ken Menzel.
Good morning, gentlemen. Yeah, the last caller, I agree with him. We've been able to boat down there for years without any problems with kayakers, yet we can't go boating down at Durkee's Lake. That would be a perfect place for them to really go set that trailer up and do rentals down there. And, you know, I just don't understand why boaters are getting the bad rap here when kayaking hasn't been around as long as the boating has.
Yeah, and we're seeing kayakers not just at Centennial Park, but there's been a huge increase at Shoshone Falls. There's been a significant increase at Twin Falls Falls, and those are all excellent places to kayak. We've even seen a large increase down at Thousand Springs around Ritter Island. We're just seeing such a huge increase in non-motorized vessels because it's cheap. You're not having to pay for fuel. You know, you can get into one of these things for between $150, $300, up to as much as you want to spend. Some of these kayaks are really nice with little propellers on them, and you can pedal just like you would a bike. The sport has really just taken off and flourished. And that's probably one of the biggest areas we're seeing is that struggle between motorized vessels and non-motorized. And we're working hard to help that out.
I want to thank him. I think I told you the story about the time I ran over a kayak.
Oh, wow, no.
On Interstate Highway. I was going from
Yes.
along the Hudson River up toward Vermont, and somebody didn't secure it atop
Yep.
their car. Was a Subaru Forester, and it flew off. And I was driving a 17-foot U-Haul fully loaded. I couldn't swerve. And that's when I realized the thing was made of fiberglass because it didn't last long under the tires of that truck.
I would bet it didn't.
So safety is key. We've got to thank Sergeant Ken Menzel. Idaho State Police on the way in just a few minutes on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. We're at 51. It's 8:30.